Hi guys, this video is brought to you today by my friend Shin, aka Weird8 Productions. Visit his channel with the link in the description to see his short films and his movie and cartoon compilations. Alright, hey guys, Living Bobby here, and now we are going into a CalArts discussion video with Gaby. Somebody implied that they were going to attack CalArts on June 3rd, and this is according to the Daily Dot. It may have been all over this thing called CalArts Style, which we'll get into that in this video. But again, you won't be seeing my face or Gabby's in this because the internet's been super laggy. So just letting you know, I'm not going back to voiceovers. I'm still going to be on camera for most videos. It's just not for this one due to technical issues. So just want to let you know. So here it is. Here's our CalArts discussion. Let me pull up the article. I'll try doing it from my phone. We'll pull the article up from my phone itself. Okay, yeah, let's start over again. This is our second take. We were discussing the CalArts threat that happened on Monday, where somebody went on Twitter and implied that they were going to do some kind of attack on CalArts. The tweet was taken down, and it was actually posted on June 3rd, and the tweet said, "Some of you guys are all right. Don't go to CalArts tomorrow." And the reason for the threat is believed to be all over the what they call the CalArts Style controversy.
See, that's one of the points that's got me, I don't know, a little wary. They don't seem to be completely sure that that was the case.
Yeah?
Now, from what I've seen, it seems like it was pretty much a joke, you know?
Still really a bad joke. Really.
Oh, definitely. I was going into that on our first take, that a lot of people aren't really taking into consideration what a joke, especially one of that nature, can bring about, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I got from the Daily Dot, in case people were watching or wondering.
Yeah. I don't even think I'd heard of the Daily Dot.
Yeah, I've used them as a source before for a couple of my stories. Yeah, I'm trying to see what other news sites say. Daily Dot said they think they heard it might have something to do with CalArts Style. SCB News, Santa Clarita Valley News, I'm guessing the name is, doesn't say.
The only other two places I found was a place, I think it was called SBC.
Yeah,
And,
I'm looking at that.
and supposedly there was an article on it on the CalArts News itself for the school, but I was not able to find any such article.
Yeah, let's see.
Which is really weird.
Signal SCV said that says the authorities say that the threat was not credible.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense to me. And again, I was going back to the whole deal with a lot of people like, yeah, why'd they go all to that trouble? It was just a joke. Jeez, wow.
But yeah, I mean, but it's such a really it's such a sick joke, especially with all the, I mean, combined with like all these school shootings that were happening recently, like the one in Santa Fe, and just the fact that the cartoon community, has some really toxic people. Not everybody is toxic. The last weekend I had a Twitter chat with this avid Star fan, and there were like 10 of us in the chat, and we're all telling him, like he was worried that because he said something stupid, these cosplayers would never talk to him again. And, we just basically spent a lot of time telling him, hey, chill out, you'll get your, next chance, maybe during San Diego Comic-Con or so forth,
Yeah, and again, it's just, I don't know. when you get a big group of people together, it's just inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
The problem for me is how far some people are taking this, especially on the internet. You know, and I was going into the whole example with swatting, where I heard a case in which one person whose house got swatted, the SWAT team busted into their house, saw the father up, and first thing they went in and opened fire on him.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I don't know if it's the exact same story, but I remember covering one swatting incident where an innocent person was actually shot and killed.
Yeah.
And the sick thing was the person who initiated the SWAT call. In prison, when he got to prison, he just started tweeting like, oh, look at me, I'm in prison now, woo, like total egomaniac,
That is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, and that was one of the first swatting cases I heard of where somebody actually died. Somebody was shot and killed.
Yeah, and I think this isn't necessarily the worst case we've gotten as far as the community that we partake in, as far as like cartoon fans go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I'm a little happy to hear that. But it seems like this whole situation is going back to that same level where we're gonna have like,
it kind of goes into how
case like well, I'm trying to think. The fan artist who was severely harassed on DeviantArt to the point of becoming emotionally unstable.
I think that was on Tumblr.
Was it? I heard that it was both. I heard it had a little bit to do with DeviantArt
Yeah,
as well.
because I saw the post where you're talking about the Steven Universe artist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when she put up her I was watching Saber Sparks' video, and like he showed the post where she says that she was going to sleep now, and it was a Tumblr post.
Yeah, no, let's like she got it from both sides, where it's like kind of like she shared her art on both the Tumblr and the DeviantArt, and I actually even went to some of the art pieces she had posted on DeviantArt and saw some of the nasty stuff that people were saying to her. So yeah, it was really bad. But even then, it got even farther to the point where we had situations like with Lauren Zook, where she had to take off her Twitter. Then Rebecca Sugar, who, thank goodness, managed the situation pretty well, apologized for a bunch of people getting on her for a piece of fan art that came out in the art book for Steven Universe, and it got so bad they actually created a different print after the situation, where now a bunch of people aren't going to see that was something that was incorporated in it.
Mm-hmm.
Even recently, aside from the whole situation with Thundercats Roar, which I feel that kind of ignited this whole particular situation with the CalArts Style.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Wars, the Star Wars fan base, a bunch of people started doing the same thing that they did to Lauren Zook. Not presumably the same people, mind you, of course.
No, I know what you're talking about, the Kathy Kennedy situation.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they
which in Kathy Kennedy's case, I think in terms of business reasons, I think there's reasons for her to be dropped from Lucasfilm, for her to resign, but the very toxic response where people are saying stuff like, "Oh, if you don't like The Last Jedi, you're sexist." I mean, that stuff I can't tolerate.
Yeah, no, it's just completely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back, there's some serious consequences to that kind of stuff. And more so than that, than the fact that people are saying or actually believing that, oh, cartoons aren't what they used to be. Who cares if they are what they used to
Yeah, and
be?
then in some ways they feel a bit more fresh and a lot more fun. I mean, I'm glad that we have shows like Steven Universe, Star Wars, supports to be regular. So those were definitely not shows we had when like I was like 5, 6 years old. Not that I didn't like the shows I watched when I was 5 or 6. I'm just saying it's cool that there's still a lot of creativity. You know, and even when they looked at something, it's alright if I go on off a little, Gabby.
Hmm.
Even though yeah, they make look kind of similar. Like I was saying before we recorded this, that if you look at like two CalArts students that would go on to, be big, JG Quintel and Darren Nefsey. I mean, yeah, their show, regular show and Star Star are kind of similar in that they have a very simple color palette and they're not exactly like super detailed characters, but those two shows are like two completely different. They're very very different in terms of what they're about and so forth. I mean, as you know, Gabby, regular show, is a much more surreal show with
Oh,
a lot more
definitely.
sci-fi pop culture references. It's about these two best friends living in a park, living in this very laid back environment. I mean, yeah, they have to deal with like relationship issues, like Mordecai and his parents, and him with his girlfriend. But it's not very heavy handed. Whereas in the case of Star Wars: The Force of Evil, it's a show about this princess who is, with her best friend, cast spells, defeats monsters, has to protect the kingdom under very, tense circumstances, you know. And
Right, right.
yeah, and I would even say in Star, the relationship issues are much more, at times it can even get kind of heavy-handed at times, with, the whole love triangle going on with Star, Tom, and Marco, and so forth, So they're, like just because they look the same doesn't mean they're, you know, the exact same show. No, they're two totally different sides. I would even go as far as to say I watch regular show on days where I need to take a break from Star. And in fact, you were even saying, even though a lot of people complain, oh, Steven Universe looks so much like shows like Gumball and Star, you were saying that Rebecca Sugar doesn't even she didn't study at CalArts.
Well, she didn't like from what I understood, she didn't get picked up by Cartoon Network from CalArts.
Mm,
She did not. She was out of state, moved into California. And from what I understand, it was after the fact, that she was able to work on shows like Adventure Time and Bravest Warriors and stuff like that,
hmm
that they actually kind of incorporated any other kind of study for her, or kind of like, education. But she did not come straight from CalArts.
I see. Um, yeah, I'm actually looking up. Yeah, she did not attend CalArts. This one article said she went to another school. But, and kind of going that's kind of, like the way I look at this whole thing is like, I like to think of it as like being part of an artistic movement where, yeah, there's going to be similarities, but they are their own artists. Like I was saying in the previous chat, it's like how in the Impressionism, art movement, yes, every, painting was made of very simple construction, whether it be sketches or dots. But, I'm not going to compare here, the Impressionism artists are not coming to mind right now. But you get what I'm saying, Gabby?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ostrich Box, going back to how I mentioned him putting his two um, when he put his 2 cents on the matter, he mentioned also uh, that trends are a thing,
Yes.
in kinds of cases, and that's all this is. It's a trend. And, people who are picking up shows are going to see that and say, like, hey, this looks a lot like this other show. And this other show that it looks like picks up a lot of money.
hmm
So, yeah, Now, that doesn't mean that every show like that is going to be, a great addition to the whole deal, or it's going to be groundbreaking like any of the other shows, it seems like, or anything like that. But it also doesn't mean that it's going to become a piece of garbage.
No, of course not.
And again, a lot of people are forgetting the subjectivity in that sense. And are definitely taking it way too seriously.
I mean, yeah, and you were even talking about how people often forget what will happen if they carry out their actions. In the case of the college incident, what if this person wanted to, I mean, I know I'm gonna sound like I'm taking it out of context, but like when you say that kind of a joke, you're making fun of like a potential incident that could happen. Like when you make jokes about, oh, you're gonna attack the school. It's like imagine what would happen if that kind of a thing got carried out. What would it mean?
Yeah, and another thing is I like whenever I hear conversations on subjects like this, one of the things a lot of people bring up is like, oh, well, I have a right to say whatever I want to say, blah, 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 blah. And one of the things we got to get clear is that just because one is allowed to say whatever they want, does not mean that there's not going to be a consequence.
Yeah,
See,
of course not.
There's a difference to expressing your own opinion
and then just making violent statements.
False pretenses. And in this case, this is a false pretense.
Yeah, definitely.
This person could very much just been making a jab, trying to be funny, but not taking into account that the authorities are very much required to look into such matters and make sure there's nothing to be worried about.
Yeah,
and trust me, they're not happy to do that.
Authorities get very upset whenever they have to, handle a situation, because what's going to happen if there's an actual incident? Like if there was like a school nearby, CalArts, that was really in trouble. That's why, whenever false alarms happen, the authorities are really aggravated because, they're under the impression that there's, a big problem. Now, obviously, in the case of CalArts, they were under the impression that they weren't sure if this tweet was credible, but you still gotta get ready just in case it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It would. So and I agree. I am the kind of person who's with the idea that it's better to be wrong about such things and then not happening than finding out later that, oh my gosh, this person was actually messed up. And did something while we all were here thinking it was a joke. So, no, I don't think there's any kind of, way to say, hey, they shouldn't have acted that way. They very much should have acted that way, and I'm glad they did.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just the thing about the cartoon space is that it's almost kind of like, the video game fan base where you have a lot of, it's mainly filled with, cool people, but unfortunately the ones that get the most attention are the angry, bitter ones, the ones that make violent threats and so forth. And unfortunately, as in the video game space, because they get a lot more of the media's attention, more people look at them as, oh, anybody that plays like a first-person shooter is going to shoot up a school,
Oh, yeah,
so,
that's the other thing. And I pointed this out as well with our discussion in Deadpool, too, oddly enough, that, it's situations like this that give, the influence of media a very bad reputation.
Especially since, most, people in the media, they never played a video game or watched a modern cartoon, I mean, I will say, I think it's more of like I'm not saying this to be ageist at all. I'm just saying it's a generational difference because, I went to school, and studied journalism. And many of the students I had, they totally get it. In fact, they really love, video games and so forth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, in fact, like our opinions editor actually wrote an op-ed speaking out when Trump, said, like, didn't Donald Trump say something along the lines of, like, he thought video games caused violence?
I don't know. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, And I think in that case, it's more of a generational kind of a thing. But still, I mean, but my point is basically, I don't want the, cartoon community to be perceived in that kind of a light, where the stupid idiots like this, but, the guy who's written CalArts, suddenly becomes, that's how the cartoon community is defined, as these, lonely, immature, people that make violence. Even if it's a joke, it's like, they would make such a scary joke like that, you know?
Yeah. And going back to this whole deal, because I know I talk about the influence of media a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I always get back to the point that yes, media does have an impact, and it's very important to
Mm-hmm.
take that impact into consideration.
Yeah.
And in cases like this, it becomes very murky because people are like, well, yeah, then you shouldn't be showing stuff like that. Or, you have to make sure everything's appropriate and blah, blah, blah. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case either. That all falls under the individual partaking in the media. And yes, if it's a young kid who's not at an age where they can interpret media and make their own decisions about it on their own, they should be accompanied with someone with better judgment.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people are barely starting to really grasp what that means, and because
Mm-hmm.
of that, we have a lot of people saying, oh, well, it's an influence. We have to control that influence. And how are we going to control that influence? So we get crazy things like that, where it's like, oh, well, it's the media for having that inside of it and leaving that as their influence, when the influence is up for interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I really feel you in that aspect, especially. I think another reason why I brought up how, you know, the fact that this like incident could really make the cartoon fan base look really bad is because, like my parents like still think I watch cartoons the exact same way as I did when I was 5 or 6. Like when my dad asked me about Marco Diaz and Star vs. Force of Evil. I mean, granted, I don't really tell him about the story arcs in Star, but he asked me, why do you like Marco? Is it because he fights crimes, or his girlfriend, and that, like, that kind of stuff where it's like, I know quite a bit more than that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I think it's a matter of uh, feel of understanding what can be taken out from media, because again, there are a lot of people who can take it face value, and you get situations like this where it's like, oh, it's the art style means it's not going to be good, or that art style looks really cool, that means the show is going to be really cool. Or it's like, oh, that character has a birth defect on its, like a skin defect. They have like a mark on there, so that means that this and that, or that and this.
Mm-hmm.
And true, that can have some part on one's experience with the show, but I think the more important thing to look at when you're looking at the influence that a piece of media can leave, it's the message that it's giving. And a lot of people, it's a foreign concept to them. What do you mean leave a message? It's it's a bunch of moving pictures.
Yeah, my mom is kind of like that. I mean, I still remember I was explaining. I don't mean to take jabs at my parents. I love them so far, but it's just that they don't watch cartoons. I mean, my dad kind of does to be interpreted, but my mom doesn't. I remember I was explaining the Blood Moon Ball to my mom, and at first she got scared because the name sounded kind of scary because blood moon.
Right,
And
right.
then when I started explaining that, oh, it bound Star and Marco's souls together, she just found that really silly. You know what I'm saying? She didn't really
Yeah.
get the significance of what that meant. You know?
Well, yeah, and everyone's going to find importance in different things.
Yeah.
You know,
And I'm
it's
not blaming, people who don't get it either. Like, once upon a time, I was like that, even when I was like 13 years old. That's why I was struggling through when I took AP literature in high school.
And that's the thing. That's the thing. Not everyone will have the same grasp
Mm-hmm.
on media,
Yeah.
but the important part is to promote the uh I guess the appropriate consumption of media.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, which is it always becomes really weird. It's kind of like, well, it feels a little awkward being there and hovering over my kid while they're on the television, or oh well, I'm really busy, so I gotta go do my own thing, or I just don't like movies, so I can't sit down and watch one with them, blah blah blah. But I mean, I think one of the easiest things you can do is have a conversation with the person in your life who who tends to have a big grasp on the sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even with having a great understanding of how media influences, that
Mm-hmm.
person can still, take it the wrong way and take all of the wrong things out of the media. And that's when you get kind of like toxic personalities,
Mm-hmm.
because they're feeding themselves with a lot of negative messages from whatever it is they like, because that's what they like about them. So the
Right.
thing is, if you see that person picking up negative things from anything, negative messages from anything they watch, play, listen to, even as far as like sports go. If they play some sort of sport and they partake in it in a certain way that just seems kind of fishy, that's a real red flag there. That like, hey, not necessarily with the media that they're going into, or whatever kind of entertainment they enjoy, could be having a problem, but the person themselves could be having a problem, and it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, reflecting through their choice in media. And yeah. I mean, and this is not saying that if you like a certain thing, you have an issue. That's not the case at
Of
all.
course not.
But you need to find ways. It's like talking to a kid about um, a scary nightmare that they had.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to tell them, oh, hey, what scared you? Because they might not even be able to grasp that.
Right.
Because, one is usually not very in tune with such things, especially at that age. But
Mm-hmm.
once you grow older, you have the same situation where someone may just not be able to understand where their feelings are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person doesn't go to the trouble of talking with them and having them assess their own thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
they can have a bunch of negativity just build up there. And one of the best ways to go through that is talk about what they like. They're not going to be thinking, oh, I have to worry about what I say because this, that, or that. No, they're just going to be like, oh, well, yeah, I like, boxing because I get a lot of tension out and blah, blah, blah. And I like, feeling that or this. And you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. They find it like a stress reliever. But then you can hear somebody being like, oh, yeah, I love seeing the person's reaction when I get to punch them in the face and I punch them particularly hard and knock them out.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you're like, oh, snap. That sounds like a problem. One of the biggest examples I have, and I don't know how many times I've talked about it, but going into the whole fandom of Rick and Morty,
Mm-hmm.
it's a clear example of how you can identify people like that. You have the crazy people who are out there, looking at the antics of Morty and Rick and saying, hey, that's my life. I absolutely love this. I'd be doing the same thing those guys are doing. Life is weird.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, how so? It's like, oh, yeah, all the illicit drugs, all of the, use of weaponry. Yeah, I can relate to that. And you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Or one of my favorite ones is that everyone's like, oh, I'm such a Rick. I'm such a angsty, troubled old man who's killed millions and had sexual relations with millions more. Some of them, in very awkward situations. And I suffer with depression. And yeah, this is so cool. Not to say that it's shameful to have depression, but if you're going to a character because of the negative ways they react to their having it, and thinking that's the right way to go, that's when you have a clear sign of, hey, this might not be right. Something must be up. And most of the time, the person who's thinking that way just doesn't realize that, and they need somebody on their side saying, hey, you all right? You seem like something's bugging you.
Yeah, that's definitely a case where somebody gets too into a character, because relating to a character is a real, that's one of the things that makes cartoons fun, is when it's almost like finding out, somebody, else, has, the same struggles you do, or so forth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, and that was why, when I posted my GradPad picture, I wanted my sister to put Puberty Starter as a sign of, how my college experience, I felt like through college, I think it's brought the best out of me, and, and all these things were...
Grow. I get, the idea of growing as a person, just kind of like, having all these new experiences kind of push you to another level of yourself, which I think is really cool. And going back to struggles, like, yeah, it was like, well, yeah, stuff is nasty and stuff is troubled and problematic and stuff, right? I mean, looking at a character like Deadpool, we have that whole deal where it's like he's a trouble guy, just like even looking at the example how we can compare it to people who could associate themselves with Rick. He's troubled, he's got a lot of problems, he uses a lot of drugs openly, he's very violent and whatnot. But one doesn't just simply take that out of Deadpool. What they take out is his perseverance. I think, and that is the distinction a lot of people can't make. If you're going to go for a person because of their problematic qualities, they better be dealing with those problematic qualities in a certain way for you to say, hey, yeah, that's my role model, or that's somebody I look up to. Otherwise, you could say it's like, I know what that feels like. I know how bad that is. I don't want to go there, though. That's a different thing.
Right, of course. I mean, when they do have, problems like, drugs or so forth, that's kind of like, shows often portray that, in a negative light. That's what creates, their character's faults. It's not supposed to be something to aspire to.
Oh, exactly. And a lot of people take that and say, yeah, I look up to that. I mean, heck yeah. Looking at in Mexico, there's a very big trend, and I've been hearing about this. Well, not a big trend, but it's been out there quite a bit. People going out on YouTube and showing off their lifestyle from allegedly selling tons and tons of drugs or being part of a cartel. These guys, all they do is they open up a YouTube channel and they start talking about all the guns they have, showing all the money they've got, throwing it out, talking about what they just did and stuff like that. And you see that, and you're like, why are they doing that? And it's because they're looking up to people who have done some really nasty things, you know? And this goes even further because these are real life people they're looking up to.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine looking up to a serial killer. I mean, goodness gracious.
Oh, good God. Oh, that...
Yeah. You know, it's just that is when you start getting worried.
Mm-hmm.
That is when you start getting worried.
Yeah. I mean, like, for anybody who has, like, that kind of that really a sick, dark mindset of, everybody hates me, I wish I could get rid of the world's problems, that kind of scary mindset. Look, I think, honestly, everybody has frustrations of some sort, whether it be family, the world around them, politics, and so forth. But in my case, what helps me, push through that is, there's a lot of people out there that care for me more than I may even realize,
Oh, definitely, definitely.
I mean, I don't mean to sound egotistical, but I'm just saying, there's definitely caring people out there.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's the problem. A lot of times, and I can relate to it. I've been there myself as well, where there's a saying somewhere along the lines of one doesn't necessarily have to be alone to feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the reasons why when you hear about talking to people about, depression or suicide, which doesn't even necessarily have to correlate with depression. There are a lot of other reasons for that as well, but that can also be, addressed in a similar fashion, that they will not feel able to come up to you and talk about it. And I'm not talking about going up to a random stranger and asking them if they're all right, because sadly, you can't ask that out of everyone.
Yeah, no, usually that helps when it's either when, for me as a person who, has admittedly has gone to therapy in high school and so forth, what helps is either finding, people close to you, like for me, it was like, friends, or, going to somebody to seek help. Like, I saw a counselor when I was a freshman in high school at a time when I was really lonely.
Yes, and I'm going to say that going outside from telling the person in the problem to go and talk to someone, the person around someone of that nature has the power to come up to that person and say, hey, I'm here. Don't forget that.
Exactly.
If you talk about something, talk to me.
Yeah.
And I think the responsibility doesn't necessarily fall onto that person's shoulders, because they can't really control how that person that they're trying to get to reacts. But the one thing is, if the person, okay, I'm trying to think of how to put this, at least have that kind of attempt where you can say, hey, I already tried that, it didn't work. And after that, walking away, the only thing left to do is let the person that you tried to get to realize, hey, something's not right with me. And not in a bad way, but like, I need help. And this person wants to help me.
Yeah.
I actually had made a pen pal on Kick. And this person came up to me and they were like, oh, I don't have any friends. And, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sad. I'm ugly. Blah, blah. And I felt bad for the person. So I started talking with them. They, more than anything, just keep talking about how upset they were.
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of been there before.
Yeah. And it got to the point where they wouldn't even explain what was upsetting them. And they just say, oh, I have no one to talk to.
Mm-hmm. Which that in itself is a really big issue.
Yes, you see, and it's sad because that's the kind of situation where such problems arise, where you're right there telling the person, hey, I'm right here, because I actually pretty much told the person that, hey, I'm right here, you can talk with me. If you want to talk about something, let's talk it out.
Yeah.
And the person just won't respond. And, well, sometimes they're hostile. In such cases as like some of the school shootings we've experienced.
Right.
So I think bottom line, what I'm trying to say is, give it a shot, just not as a stranger, but as a person who is close and friendly-like, more important, friendly-like, with any kind of person who's like that, to address it with them. And if they refuse to address that issue within themselves, feel absolutely free to walk away.
Right.
You do not need to stay there and help them.
Yeah, because forcing is
job, and you did a lot just by doing that, and that is commendable in itself.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, just from my personal experience of having gone to people for advice and not getting much help, and I've definitely in recent years have found the right people to ask for help. What I will say is if you do want to help people, like, make an effort. Don't just say, oh, things will get better. Because that's what I've been told throughout high school, and that, really does, that's, to me, it's almost like a non-answer, Like,
and I think there's a right moment to say that. More importantly, it's engaging in that conversation, despite it being uncomfortable, maybe even scary. Just look past that and say, hey, this is a person I care about.
Yeah. Not saying that could never be a response.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's, not the only thing that can be said, especially if you could see that, situation in your shoes, since we all have, our issues, we, none of us really live, perfect lives, especially personally.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Everyone's got something. Everyone.
Yeah. So yeah, I just think So if you are going, if anyone wants to address such issues, actually make an effort. Try to put yourself in that person's shoes.
Yeah, and again, don't feel with the pressure of, oh, if I talk to them about it, then if they react to it the wrong way, then I'm gonna have to stay there and fix it. No, you don't. Your job is to just let the person know that you want them to be okay. And if they refuse to find the way to make themselves okay, that's beyond you. If the person decides to, ask you for help after you're telling them that you're there for them, then absolutely, see what you can do. Nothing more, nothing, well, maybe less if, you can't you try to balance yourself out a little bit. But, just kind of like, I don't know, it's really hard.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and
what
was I gonna say?
Kind of like,
because
throw it out there. See what happens.
Yeah, I mean, but it definitely would be nice, for people to, admit their problems and to find help if they need, especially since, there's much more to life than just, watching cartoons. Like most people, I'm, certain we all are, we watch cartoons when we often need a break from life, and sometimes we even, like, get some answers,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Like me personally, I mean, I'm currently trying to find a job in journalism or PR. I run my YouTube channel like, this pretty much the same way I did. I run my YouTube and social media like when I was running my newspaper back in college, Like, there's just so much, not just for career prospects, but there's so, get many more people in and out of the cartoon industry. And even people who are cartoon, fans, they also go through, a lot and have, a lot to, look forward to and so forth. It's not just, oh, the fun people. They're actually, legit people,
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, some person may have a very particular interest in a show because it reflects an issue that they've been dealing with to an extent that, has led them to have some very strong experiences. And that show may potentially have helped them process the experiences which they had. I personally enjoy watching shows that way. I won't say I've had the craziest life ever. Probably nothing close to it. But whatever craziness has entered my life, I'd like to say some form of recreation has helped me figure out a way to process it. Whether it be listening to a song, sitting down with a notebook, or watching any form of show, whether it's animated or live action. Anything you can really think of.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good form to process it, if used correctly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think do we have much more to say? I kind of feel like we've been through pretty much everything.
Oh yeah, I feel like it's kind of time to bring it full on circle and kind of close it up.
Yeah, definitely. So the basic sum of it all is that don't get all riled up on cartoons, even if it's over something as ridiculous as oh, they all look the same, because at the end of the day, any kind of art movement, whether it be the great artists of the past or the modern cartoonists of today, there's going to be similarities, but that doesn't mean they don't have their unique qualities. And it's just again, cartoons, we go to them when we need breaks and even answer like we don't go there to just emulate our lives. you know
I think what I want to bring everything back to is don't worry about don't worry about whether someone agrees with you or not.
mm-hmm.
Worry about um consequences of actions. I guess just worry about things that can actually have a serious effect on something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, okay, someone's making a dumb joke. All right, brush it off. That's perfectly fine. And I think, I guess, why is it so hard to word things?
I know it's a tough thing to talk about.
Talking to the people who are also on the other end of it all, where they're like, oh, they're bashing my favorite shows and look at what they're doing, because I kind of felt the same way too. I'm going to say worry less about that and worry less of what that kind of talk, and worry more about what that kind of talk is bringing about. Like for me, what really made it an issue was the fact that somebody went as far as to manage to get a school closed for a day because the authorities were led to believe there was some sort of threat. That is the main thing that I'm seeing here. That was like, just no, don't do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, obviously no, because at the end of the day, even that kind of a joke, all it does is just scare people, and it just makes this community
It's not good
bad.
to the people who are hearing the joke,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not good to the person making the joke.
Yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the authorities are now going to try to find, even if that person, who made the tweet gets caught, they're going to face, consequences. I mean, basically, they're. And now I'm getting, choked up with stuff, but you know, like that person's probably gonna have like a felony on their belt, and as this YouTuber I watch often says, whenever this guy happens, they probably won't even get a job at McDonald's. You know.
Yep.
So it's just like that's where you're gonna end up when you make threats like this. You know.
Yeah. Serious consequences, man.
I mean, it's not going to influence the school, and it's not going to, you know, stop the whole CalArts style. Even if, you know, CalArts style, you know, changes, it's just going to become the next trend. You know, what follows is another art trend.
That's the ironic part of it all. Is that one of the potential reasons why this joke was made is actually going to be, you know, completely the same despite this person's efforts.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I would even go as far as say, like, as for this one person, I would ask, you know, do you have a particular, like, art style? Do you draw? Do you have, like, something that could, you know, change the cartoon industry? I mean, if so, I'd like to hear it. Just don't, you know, make threats to CalArts, you know? So,
And I just imagine the possibility of said person just going like, oh, no, I don't even freaking draw.
yeah, that's probably the case. Because, you know, there's definitely people, like, the kind of entitled person out there where it's like, I'm complaining, and then you ask the question, do you have something better? And you don't get a response.
You know, and then again, trolls will be trolls no matter what. You know, gotta, you know, find them and, you know,
yeah, definitely.
Figure out where to avoid.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why I just don't hang around Reddit.
Yeah, same here. I'm mainly on Twitter, you know. Which, you know, there's definitely trolls on Twitter, but I make an effort to try to find, you know, the you know, the best of Twitter and the Star community and so forth.
All right, then.
So, all right, hey, Gabby, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, ever since I heard this news story, I've been wanting to talk about it, and you know, I know it's the same for you. You were very impassioned when you read the Daily Dot story. So
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was infuriated.
I know.
Absolutely sickened. It was just, ugh. And I don't even think so much as with the person, but just the situation. It just didn't need to happen.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, you know, I'm all for, you know, innovation. I want to see what's next, but again, just don't, you know, don't make threats just to, you know, don't imply that you're going to attack a school.
I can't believe we got to say that.
Yeah.
But right, we shall nonetheless. Don't do it, kids.
Yeah, please
don't.
Do it. All right, so I guess we'll leave it at that. Thank you again for coming on, Gabby. And
thank you for having me. It's a pleasure every time.
And I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, this has been a Blood Moon Bobby video. Please like this video or dislike it, and please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.